Hey guys, welcome back to Football United TV. This is the F.I.T.A show, Football in the Americas. I'm here with Johnny. Stay tuned. We're going to talk about Argentinian football right after the intro. All right, guys, welcome back once again. Once again, Johnny and myself. We almost pulled off an Argentinian here, and I do apologize. This was very it was supposed to be planned, but today I had my mind just wasn't working properly, so it's gonna be a little simpler than usually, but that probably means it's gonna be a little shorter as well, which that might be a good thing for a couple of you. But thank you for tuning in once again, Johnny. How are you, my friend?
Good, good, always good. Happy to be here once again. Happy to talk about South American soccer, and we spent some time talking about uh, the continental competitions,
Yeah,
Brazil more specifically after that.
yeah,
So now it's good to talk about what for some is the second power in South America.
yeah,
Others would
absolutely.
say equal with Brazil.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but yeah, the Argentinian league is, in terms of quality, definitely up there. So it's always good to emphasize them.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. If you go back to watch the show we did on Copa Sudamericana and Libertadores with our good friend from Brazil, he's
Yeah,
we spent like most of the time talking about Brazilian and Argentinian teams. Like it's gonna be really it's very unlikely that a team from outside those two countries is gonna be winning the continental competitions this season and the ones to come. If we're being honest, right? So it's definitely a big one. Johnny has a couple of the big teams and the national team represented right behind him there. By the way, you can get all of those kits and many more in his website. We're gonna show it a little later on in the show. We're gonna give you a special promo code for any Argentinian stuff that you purchase as well, 15% off. So stay tuned. But yeah, let's go to the league. Let me share the screen here. It hasn't started too long ago, but 11 games played already. It started
hmm
a lot earlier than the Brazilian league. Just give me 2 seconds, guys. Sorry for the delay. Here it is. Okay, you looking at what I'm looking, Johnny?
yes, sir.
All right, dope. Our guest, by the way, was supposed to be a Racing Club fan as well, so that would have been really cool. We're gonna get him. We'll eventually do it at a different time. He's from the UK, so like it makes it a lot tougher for him to be. It's quite late in the UK right now. I think it's like 1:20 a.m. if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, Johnny, talk to me, my man. How's this one looking? We've spoken about River Plate in the past. Like they're supposedly the not supposedly they've been the strongest Argentinian club for a while now,
hmm
right? And the second one that everyone knows, like probably perhaps the most famous club in South America, Boca Juniors.
Yeah,
So they're not even. I'm not even looking at them right now,
the
but
the league is separated into two groups. Boca is in
aha,
the Zona A, Zona B. Yeah,
aha, there you go. Well, they're not doing too great either, but
yeah.
not as poorly as I was expecting. But yeah, talk to me. Well, if you care to explain like quickly the format of the league because it's not something that
Oof.
Europeans are used to look at.
Yeah. So actually, before we even get into that, one thing I wanted to talk about real quick, which is very specific about the Argentinian league. That is probably the only league in the world that came up with a real criteria, with real numbers and rules to consider a big team. Like who, because that's a discussion more or less everywhere, right? Who are the big teams? Who are the medium teams? Who are the small teams? Argentina is probably the only country in the planet where the league came out publicly and said the big teams are the ones who achieved this, this, and that. The medium teams did this, this, and that. So it's like it's clear cut. Yeah, which is pretty impressive because in other countries, no offense to Tottenham fans, but like Big Six, like
I love you so much, Johnny.
like let's be honest.
You're one of my favorite people. Yeah.
Can we please
Absolutely
be honest? Right. Like so.
Do.
So this goes back to the 30s actually. So the Argentinian league professionalized itself in the early 30s. I believe it was 31, and then 2 or 3 years into it, in one of these like annual meetings where the team met up with the federation to discuss the rules, the prize money and stuff like that.
Yep.
Some of the teams that would draw bigger crowds or teams from the capital started to tell the federation, hey, why does my vote count just as much as this little neighborhood team that has 500 people going to their small stadium? Or why does my vote count just as much as this team from the countryside that's irrelevant, or whatever?
Mm-hmm.
And so that kind of raised the question, well, what makes you big? And where's the line drawn? Like, and all these things. So the federation basically set 3 criteria for a team to be considered big. One was to play 20 consecutive years in the first division without relegation or a year in hiatus or anything. So 20 consecutive years in the first division. After that, you needed to have at least 20,000 members in your social club. And probably
1 second. Quick question. Those 20 consecutive years, is it like right in this moment or in their history?
It was like starting at that point.
Okay. So like if a team got relegated last season, for instance, but they did spend 20 years, at some point it already means they qualify for that criteria.
No, this was like I believe this was like 1936 or 1937 with this where this started. So they were like, once we get to 1957, whoever has achieved these milestones, these are the big teams.
Okay.
So 20 consecutive years in the first division, because the first division also like just recently been created. Before then, the Argentinian league was amateur and it was run by local organs. So 20 consecutive years in the first division, 20,000 members in your club, and at least 2 national titles. That's what you needed. So after 20 years, there were 5 clubs that fit the criteria: Boca, River, Racing, Independiente, and San Lorenzo. So those to this day are considered the 5 big teams of Argentina, and there's like literally nothing that changed it ever. Doesn't matter how big your fan base is, how many titles you've won. No, these are the 5 big teams in Argentina, period. So it's pretty set in stone. Then there were 2 teams that came close. One was Huracan, and the other one was Estudiantes. You can see in first place right there. Yeah. Estudiantes had the consecutive years in the first division. They had the number of members in their club. They didn't have the titles. Huracan was the opposite. They had the consecutive years. They had the titles. They didn't have enough members in their club. So those 2 became considered the medium teams. And then below that, everyone else was a small team. So that's how they defined it. And so in the elections after that point, the big 5 had their vote had a weight of 3. Huracan and Estudiantes were medium teams. So their vote had a weight of 2, and everyone else had a vote worth 1. And it's pretty crazy. And then from the 50s to this day, the group of medium teams grew to about 5 teams, colloquially speaking, like in everyday, day-to-day soccer discussions. And the
Yeah.
teams who joined Estudiantes and Huracán are Newell's and Rosario Central, and Vélez
Vélez,
Sarsfield.
right?
And so now those are considered. So there's the 5 big teams, the 5 medium teams, and the rest are small teams. For a while, Huracan was almost considered an honorary big team because not only did they come so close to making the criteria, but out of the big 5, River and Boca were very big rivals.
Mm-hmm.
Racing and Independiente were very big rivals. And Huracan happened to be the very big rival of San Lorenzo. So
Oh,
San
okay.
Lorenzo almost pulled Huracan up just by association because they were 2 teams from the same neighborhood with a big rivalry.
Yeah.
So that's just kind of to set the stage of like, so when we talk about, for example, you look at Vélez in 11th place, what does that mean? That's like a medium-sized team that's in 11th place below Central de Córdoba, Barracas Central, Colón, that are small teams. Aldosivi and Tigre, like super small teams. So
Oh,
that's just to give people a little bit of context on some Argentinian soccer history. If this is a piece of soccer history that fascinates me, so I know this story by heart and I love it.
yeah.
Um,
That's so cool. It's
yeah,
so cool. I actually had no idea. Argentina's right here, but I had no idea. And
yeah,
you correct me if I'm wrong, but like Estudiantes, I'd say they're the most successful team outside these big 5 for in the 21st century.
yeah. They're 4 times Libertadores champions.
Yeah, I was
Um,
gonna. They're probably more successful in their history than San Lorenzo is, aren't they?
Yeah, no, in terms of Libertadores, in Brazilian leagues, I have to check, it's probably closer, but in terms of Libertadores, they only lose to Independiente and Boca. I think they have the same amount than River, actually, if I'm not
There you
mistaken.
go.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah.
And actually, San Lorenzo won their first Libertadores in 2015. So for the longest time, they were the only big club without a Libertadores.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
their acronym is Club Atlético San Lorenzo, and the Argentinians used to joke around that it meant Club Sin Libertadores de America, like
Hmm.
because the acronym is like more or less the same. But
Yeah.
yeah, so that's more or less where these teams stand historically and within the context of their country.
Yo,
Um,
this is such a cool topic, and I feel like it's a stream all by itself. But if I just 1 second, big up Luca. Thanks for watching, my man. Thanks for being here. But what do you feel like the criteria should be right now? Like if Brazil or England were to create that as well. In Brazil, it's tough because in Brazil, like we call like 13, 14 big clubs. Like some people start calling like Goiás a big club. So
yeah.
it's
So the thing about Brazil is that it's such a big country, and Brazil is very rich in regional competitions.
yeah,
So, for example, Goiás is the biggest team in the center west, and that has its value. That's
yeah,
not something you can discard. But what does that mean on a grander scale? That's what's up for debate. Paysandu, Remo, huge teams of the north of Brazil, but the north of Brazil is probably the least represented nationally.
yeah,
So Brazil's tough because of its regional competition, and I think historically, um, the Big 12 of Brazil is more of like a number of fans thing, right? The Big Four from São
right.
Paulo, they happen to also be the most successful teams within their states.
Yeah.
But I think it also has to do with the number of fans they have more than anything.
Does Botafogo have a bigger fan base than Bahia or Sport, for example? Like that
So
wouldn't
they
sound too right.
do.
Yeah.
If you count only the Botafogo fans in Rio,
Oh, then probably not.
then
Yeah.
then probably it's very close. But
Hmm.
for example, Botafogo can play in Acre, like in a
Yeah.
in the middle of nowhere, in a place that borders Bolivia. There's gonna be
Yeah.
Botafogo fans there. If Bahia
Yeah.
plays there, there's no one there.
It's a
You
good
know,
point. That's a good point.
Brasilia, for example, has a lot of Botafogo fans. Just like to
Yeah.
give an example,
Hmm.
uh, these places like Piauí, Maranhão. But if you count just in the city of Rio, it's probably very close. Yeah, and Bahia has 2 Brazilian league titles. That's definitely not nothing. Uh, you know, Atlético
I
Paranaense recently has had a lot of success.
Yeah, they're the 13th I'm
Brazilian
talking
Cup,
about. Yeah. Yeah.
Libertadores final in 2005. So if you were to name a 13th big team in Brazil, they're one of the ones. But we're going off on a Brazil tangent.
Yeah, my bad. My bad.
No,
Okay.
it's fine. But it's tough. It really depends. It almost becomes a personal thing of what do you think it means to be a big club.
Yeah.
Uh, in my opinion, it does have something to do with a mix of titles, how many fans you have, how old you are. I think
Yeah.
history is very important in soccer. Um,
Maddie, my man, we're gonna be setting up this stream. It's something that was created in 1930 something. That's back when you were born. So it makes sense for you to help me with this stream. Let's set it up. Let's invite Johnny, and this is a fun conversation to have. By the way, big up Jordan and uh,
uh,
Trevisani 10.
so
Is that your
Mateo,
friend?
shout out to Mateo.
All right, Mateo, my man. Welcome to the channel. Thank you so much for being here. Golasso John, an encyclopedia of football, abso-freaking-lutely. You are correct about Estudiantes, 3 in a row in the late 60s with Veron father, and one in the late 2000s with Veron's son, that he corrected
Son, yeah, La
afterwards.
Bruja and La Brujita.
La Brujita, dude, Veron, like one of my favorite players to watch when I was a teenager. Him and Riquelme, those two, like probably my favorite Argentinians ever to watch. But yeah, let's talk about this season though. Like how's everything looking? How's football in Argentina overall? Like,
Yeah, so
go ahead.
another conversation we have to have before we get into how this season is looking is what is this season? Like, what is this tournament we're watching? Because
Exactly, exactly.
Argentina is probably the only country that manages to be more confusing than Brazil. So there's actually a debate whether this tournament is the first division of the Argentinian league or not. Um, this all really stems from the clubs getting together and forming a league and wanting to organize their own tournament separate from the Argentinian Federation, um, like it happens in a lot of big leagues in Europe, England, and Italy. Uh,
Hmm.
it's what Brazil's been trying to do for the longest time, but the clubs hate each other so much that they're incapable of probably even scheduling a meeting.
Yeah,
But the Argentinians did it, but the break from the federation has been not as easy and clear cut as people thought it would be. And then the pandemic came in right in the middle, which made things even more complicated. So at one point, the Argentinian league went from 20 to over 30 clubs in an attempt to switch their schedule from the South American January to December to Europe's August to December. I mean,
hmm,
August to May, right?
yeah,
And the way they did that was to put more teams in the first division, make the tournament last a year and a half. And then after that, relegate four, promote two until you get to, a smaller number of clubs.
yeah,
And then because of all the reasons I just mentioned before, things got complicated. And now there's I think about 4 or 5 tournaments in Argentina, a couple of which are organized by the Argentinian Federation, a couple of which are organized by the League of Clubs, and now no one really knows what's what's happening. Long story short, so this right here is a tournament organized by the League of Teams. This is the 3rd edition of it. Boca won the first one, and Boca consider themselves national champions, added a star to their crest, and no one else believes they're Argentinian champions. Officially, it's called the League Cup, the Argentinian League Cup.
hmm,
So, but it's also the only tournament that was played that year. So that's why, for a lot of people, yes, it is the Argentinian League. They are the Argentinian Championships. It was
yeah,
the one tournament that was played. Colón won in 2011. I mean 2021. Which is huge for Colón. Is a team from the countryside. They've recently been more relevant, but historically not so much. So for them, it's a huge deal.
yeah.
And now this is the 3rd edition, which is going to come to an end in 2 or 3 months, and then the Argentinian league, which everyone kind of agrees that's the actual Argentinian league, is going to start in August.
Okay.
And then alongside that, there's also the Argentinian Cup. And there has also been like a Super Cup that Tigre won. So it's a mess.
Yeah,
It's a mess.
it sounds
It's going to be
confusing.
interesting to see how people are going to look back at these last 5 or 6 years of the Argentinian league and try to categorize what is what, you know.
Yeah, yeah, no, that it sounds like we're gonna be listening to a lot of confusion. Us
Yeah.
in Brazil, we know what that's like.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
this that we're looking at won't have any like relegation or anything like that. It's
So that's the other thing. Regardless of everything that I just said, everything that's being played right now counts for the aggregate table that does relegate teams.
wow.
Yeah. so
Congrats, Argentina! Like,
so in this moment in the aggregate table, I had it in front of me. The last two teams are Patronato and Godoy Cruz,
okay,
uh, with
yeah,
Atletico Tucumán and Arsenal slightly above, also fighting uh, to get away from relegation.
yeah. I remember Arsenal de Sarandí. They were a Libertadores side like a good 15 years ago. They played like a
Even
couple of
less.
Liber or like maybe even less. Fluminense beat them 6-0 back in 2008. I remember that game very vividly. I was there. That was
They
fun.
were they were in the group stage with Atlético Mineiro when they won the Libertadores. There's that famous two-footed slide tackle on Ronaldinho that should have broken his leg in a million pieces and ended his
Yeah,
career, but magically didn't.
yeah.
That's kind of a famous play. And if you guys look it up, just look Ronaldinho, Arsenal, Argentina, and like it's the most violent slide tackle you've ever seen in your life. And Ronaldinho got away with just a bruise, which is
That
amazing.
tra- that traumatized him so much he started singing after that one.
Exactly. Yeah, he gave up on soccer after. So yeah, so here we are. So we have 28 teams, which is a lot. So there's a lot of small teams in the Argentinian league right now.
Yeah,
Racing is undefeated. Um,
yeah, that's
so
impressive.
they're doing very well, and their form is also being reflected in the Copa Suramericana.
Hmm.
They're also undefeated. They're first in their group. We talked about them a little bit in the last podcast because they're in the group with Cuiabá.
Yeah, yeah,
And they actually just beat Cuiabá in Argentina, and that was like their direct competitor. So that kind of forces Cuiabá to now have to beat them in Brazil and do better than them against the other opponents in the group. But Racing is in great shape. River, maybe not as well as people imagine, but the top four of each group go to a quarterfinal and so
yeah,
on. So really, if River just makes it to the knockout stages, they're a title contender. Argentina suffered a lot more from the pandemic economically than Brazil did.
yeah.
The Argentinian economy, the inflation there is like they took a big hit. So that's why even in recent years, Brazil has dominated South America, not only in comparison to the other 8 countries, but even on top of Argentina, a good amount. Historically, River Plate and Boca has always lived in kind of like an oasis economically in Argentina because their fan bases are just so much bigger than everyone else's. All the TV money goes to them. Um, but like I said, in the past couple of years, Brazil has been dominating. River Plate this year seems like it's making the first moves to make their way up to go back to being able to compete with the top Brazilian teams. Boca, not so much.
No, a good way to look at it is that like River Plate and Boca have always been the Real Madrid and Barcelona of the continent, and the
Yeah.
Brazilian league is pretty much like the Premier League, right? Like where there's more big teams, and now like it's more financially stable. I feel
Yeah,
like that was smart to say. Did that make sense?
that's a good comparison.
Thank you.
If
Thank
uh, if you're trying to make parallels to something other people are more familiar with, I
you.
think that's a good way to look at it.
Thank you.
So Boca's coach is also like they're talking about firing him because Boca has also spent way more money, but they're such a pragmatic, not creative, just a bad team to watch. And as you can see, they're barely like on the brink
Yeah.
of like qualifying to the next round, with only I think 3 or 4 games left. So I never discard Boca. Actually, just 2 games left.
Yeah, two.
I
If that's how it works, if they play everyone in their side once, yeah, it's going to be
Yeah.
13.
So so yeah. So I never discard Boca once they make it to a knockout stage, because we've seen sort of mediocre Boca teams go far just because of how strong they are playing in the Bombonera and that energy. And you can criticize Boca for many things, but it's never for having players who lack the effort.
Hmm.
So then sometimes that makes up for their lack of technique. So, but if they finish fourth and they play Estudiantes, because it's first against fourth, second against third, and if they get Estudiantes right in the next round, then it's going to be tough. I think it would make the world of a difference for them finishing second or third, getting Aldo Civi or Tigre in the next round, and then getting one of these big teams maybe further ahead, where maybe at that point they're playing better and maybe are more confident.
Yeah. I actually you mentioned Aldo Civi, and that leads me to ask you like about these teams that I'm assuming they're having wonder seasons like this one or Sarmiento in the A group, because I've never heard of these two. Are they
Yeah,
like from smaller cities? Or are they recent clubs that just started playing in mainstream football in Argentina? Like, what's their story?
both of them are from the greater Buenos Aires.
Okay.
Um, Definitely like neighborhood teams, teams that don't really have fans outside of their neighborhood. Literally, the Argentinian soccer scene is very like that.
Yeah.
Um, Sort of like London, like where you live and you have your neighborhood team, and that culture actually comes from English immigration. So yeah, so Sarmiento is having a great season. If I were to give you more details, yeah, I'd be making stuff up, but it's a surprise to see them there. They're definitely ahead of teams that are bigger, have more fans, have more money, have better players.
Hmm.
Definitely Talleres and San Lorenzo way down there. Banfield. Those are 3 teams that are in continental competitions right now, for example.
Yeah. Defensa y
Defensa y
Justicia.
Justicia as well. Union Santa Fe is also in the Sudamericana, and those are all behind Sarmiento.
Yeah.
Aldo Civi. The only thing that's cool about Aldo Civi that I can point out is that their striker is Cauteruccio, who won the Libertadores with San Lorenzo in 2015 or 2014. Sorry, 2014.
Okay.
So he's like a veteran in the Argentinian league. He's in his late 30s and he's leading that attack. Um, but yeah,
Yeah.
it's and man, and that's why. And me, it's funny. Me and Mateo have this discussion often. I love knockout stages. I think every league should have them, and that's because of this. Aldo Civi, has an actual chance at the title. So does Tigre, and
Yeah. Yeah.
so
It's
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 going to be
it's
interesting to
crazy,
see.
man. Like this team I've never heard of being in front of Boca Colon, who's the current champion, Independiente, arguably the biggest club not the biggest club in the continent. If you're talking about Libertadores titles, I finally learned that, Johnny. I'm never gonna ask you about Peñarol again because I feel like I asked like 3 times already. I know it's Independiente.
Yeah,
And even Arsenal, who's supposedly a bigger team, Vélez I see them as a huge club as well. So yeah, big up for these guys. And yeah, right now, like who are the biggest stars of? I'm even gonna play on the players thing here. Who are the biggest stars? Like if I'm assuming there's a couple of players that we might even recognize who are finishing their careers in Argentina, who had good careers in um in Europe, but also a couple of players that you expect to see. Well, every now and then they go to the MLS, but they
yeah,
always go to Europe. They also go to Europe very frequently.
yeah. So, well, Alvarez is having a crazy good season. He's been uh, he's been in great form for River Plate.
Yeah.
So even if you're just following the results, you're going to see his name pop up in the score sheet.
He's
Benedetto
joining City, right?
Alvarez, yeah,
Yeah,
that's what they're saying. Yeah,
yeah,
he's very, very, very promising.
yeah.
Benedetto went back to Boca after a not spectacular um, couple years in Europe and the smaller teams in Europe. And he's also been more or less like not doing great, but that's just like the Boca's team as a whole. I
Yeah.
don't know if that has anything to say about him specifically, but his form hasn't been great. Mauro Boselli, lead scorer of the Argentinian league. You probably remember him, Charlie, because he played for Corinthians not too long ago. Does that
He's
ring
not
a bell?
young, is he?
He's old.
Yeah, I feel like that's why. Like I feel like he's really old. Yeah, I do remember him.
He won the Libertadores with Estudiantes in 2009 with La Brujita Verón. He scored one of the goals in the Mineirão against Cruzeiro that gave him the title. And after that, he also went to Europe, wasn't great, went to Mexico. He did really well in Mexico, and that's where Corinthians got him from Club León.
Hmm.
And in Corinthians also, yeah, and not what people were expecting. I think people were kind of expecting like the next Guerrero, like the next big center forward, but he actually for a lot of time didn't even start. And then he went to Paraguay for a bit. I think it was Cerro Porteño that he played for, and now
Okay.
he's back to Estudiantes, his old club, and yeah, mid to late 30s, and he's the leading scorer of the Argentinian league. So I
Cool.
love the poeticness. I don't know if that's a word, but of a player going back to where he started
Yeah,
and to do well. Not to just be there because of history of what he did 10, 15 years ago, but because he's still useful,
yeah.
because he still has he can still contribute. So, and
Definitely.
Estudiantes goalkeeper is Andujar, who used to play for the Argentinian national team. Never the greatest goalie, never really started, but he's a historic Catania goalie. Actually, ended up going to Napoli for some years. And now also veteran goalkeeper for Estudiantes.
Yeah.
So, and Estudiantes is also doing very well in the Sudamericana, undefeated so far. So they're in the group.
I haven't seen a truly good Argentinian keeper in a long time, if ever.
Romero, maybe the most recent, went to United. I don't know.
No, I mean he might be good in the scale we're talking about here, but like he's never been an elite goalkeeper.
Elite goalkeeper. This is a good conversation. I'm not great pulling this stuff off the top of my head. Abeldancieri, maybe,
Okay,
who's
yeah,
the
he
last
was
like
better. Yeah, he
top
was better.
class Argentinian goalkeeper.
Yeah,
But
because if you're talking about Romero, I think Martinez is going to end up having a better career than Romero. I think he's a better keeper.
yeah,
Aston Villa.
Romero. I mean, also Romero. I think if he hasn't retired, he's probably close to retiring.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Um, there's some. Well, I'm a huge fan of Armani, River Plate's goalie. Also a veteran at this point. I really think he should have started in the 2018 World Cup when I think it was Romero got hurt and Sampaoli put in Caballero, which literally only played because he had Manchester City next to his name. Because
yeah,
Caballero was a disaster, and
yeah,
Armani at the top of his form,
yeah.
Atlético Nacional, won the Libertadores, like incredible goalkeeper. It's a shame. Um, but yeah, Lisandro Lopez, man, we were talking about Sarmiento. Look at that. Actually, I didn't know that, but Lisandro Lopez is a legend, legend,
Yeah,
legend, legend. Super old. I think he's
yeah.
close to 40, if not already over 40, but Racing legend. Um, Playing for Sarmiento. So that's probably where a lot of their success comes from. Jose Sand, I'm not joking, 41 or 42 already.
Wow.
Lanús legend, one of those big number nines in the box headers, very physical, and still at that age scores his goals. Luis Miguel Rodriguez, we mentioned him in the last podcast. La Pulga Rodriguez,
Yeah, yeah,
super fun player to watch. Very underrated. Also kind of a veteran at this point, but just one of those players that you'd love to see in those mid-table teams.
Yeah.
But as we saw the table earlier, Colon isn't doing bad, so
Yeah.
we'll see him do some fun stuff in the knockout round, hopefully. Um, Edwin Cardona plays for Racing, also Colombian national team, big player.
See Marcos Rojo here. I'm sure United fans miss him a lot.
Rojo, yeah. Uh, Venegas for Independiente is also a big one. Um,
They're
Cauterucho that I pointed out earlier for
yeah.
the CV, he's right there. Armani right there.
There used to be
Uh,
so much hype around Pavon.
yeah,
So much hype a couple years ago.
yeah. Didn't turn out to be as good as we thought, but he's still there, still scoring his goals. Not great, not the greatest player in the world, but he's still there. Enzo Perez for River, great player, big fan of him. Fabra has been a defender for Boca for the longest time. I'm a fan of his. I don't think he's like out of this world defender, but very solid.
Yeah.
And
And anything
Centurion deserves a podcast of his own. Uh, Probably the least well behaved soccer player I've seen in the past 15 years. Makes Nangolan look like a saint.
wow. The heir to Materazzi.
Yeah, yeah, like literally, like kind of like Vidal, like crashes his car. He's caught partying the night before. He's a complicated player. He played for São Paulo, so I remember him well. Extremely talented, but his head just isn't there.
Yeah.
Lucas Prato, super veteran, but went back to Vélez. That's another example of a player that went back to a team that he did well for.
Yeah.
Very, very solid striker. I'm a big fan.
Dude,
Uh,
Abila. Ramon Abila.
Ramon Abel, another talk about like a big center forward that
Yeah.
loves to be physical. Yeah, not the most technical player, but he can score his goals. So
Barco, great player. Always a great player.
yeah, Marco Ruben again, another player that went back to
Yeah.
Rosario after playing for Atlético Paranaense for a bit.
Yeah.
Um, so
Yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah,
this list seems to be favoring the veterans. Do you have players in your mind that like you expect to like be in with the exception of Alvarez, obviously the first player in in this list, who I'm sure is going to have a good career in Europe, but a lot of people see him as that Aguero replacement for City. By the way, I think it's already done. I don't think it's a possibility. I think it's just a matter of when. He's signed, but he's loaned back, and it's not like it's they're not sure if he's going to go this summer or the summer afterwards, perhaps in the winter.
mhm.
But I think he's already like a City player. But is there anyone else that that you see something there that you expect to see having a good career that we haven't seen yet?
No, no. Honestly, no one that I can name right now. The transfer season just closed not too long ago, so a
Yeah,
lot of these young players left, and we've spoken about this in some of our MLS podcasts. A lot of these young Argentinian players aren't even like a lot of the clubs aren't even able to hold these players in their local league when an MLS team comes along,
yeah,
and puts money on the table. So it's not even just the European teams now. Obviously there's the Middle East has a lot of money, but now the MLS teams are coming in and getting a lot of these young Argentinians. So the last one that was definitely worth mentioning was Almada,
yeah.
right? Um, Thiago Almada that went to Atlanta United.
I have that was just plain awkward. I have to say it. Like I didn't understand that. Like a lot of good European clubs wanted him.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, Almiron did kind of the same thing. He's
Yeah.
Paraguayan, he's not Argentinian, but he ended up going to Newcastle, so he ended up
I,
being able to
I'm a
make that
fan of
jump.
Almiron's. I like him. I like him
Yeah,
as a player. Yeah.
that's an Argentinian player that blew up in Argentina young, went to the MLS. But most of them end up either staying in the MLS and kind of getting forgotten or going back to Argentina. So we'll see how Almada does. But and so what a lot of South American countries do, not only Argentina, but to make up for all these young talents leaving, they bring back the veterans, right? Which is a way to
Yeah.
try to bring someone more or less on the same level, but it's not as expensive past their peak, so they're more accessible. Just on a personal level, they're more likely to want to be close to family and stuff. So that's why we've been talking about a lot of veterans. So yeah, I mean, the Argentinian league is always a big pool of talent. So I'm sure by the end of the year we're gonna start hearing about a couple players that did well and stood out and that are calling people's attention.
Yeah, absolutely. It's they've always like ever since we're alive, we've always seen a lot of amazing midfielders, amazing attackers as well. Defenders, not as many. In the early 2000s, actually, they had some like solid gangstas on defense. But for a good couple years now, it's been a while. It's been a while. They haven't been good defensively. But I simply don't know enough to say that I expect to see that change. But if no name rang like Johnny's head, I'm assuming there's no like spectacular center backs in Argentina right now. But I think we've touched on well, the basic information already. I think it's clear for anyone to see who the favorite clubs are. As Johnny said, because there's a couple of knockout rounds for this competition. There's always a chance that a team like Aldo Civi
Mm-hmm.
might win, but I mean, going through, like I can say probably Boca, Estudiantes, River, and Racing are the favorites to win this competition. Like,
Yeah, yeah, historically, definitely. Yeah, maybe Defensa Justicia manages to grab that last spot over there and can do some damage. Colon is in fifth place in Group B right now.
current champs. Yeah.
If they sneak in there, they could bother some people. Like I said, they're last year's Argentinian champions. They won the championship that was played in Argentina. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, yeah,
So um, yeah, it'll be interesting to see. And just one last thing I want to mention about Argentina,
yeah,
kind of circling back to continental competitions, since we mentioned that in the last couple of podcasts. Um, I mentioned in the very beginning that they increased the number of teams in the first division from 20 to 30 to make their league last a year and a half in order to rotate the calendar to fit the European one. Well, what ended up happening was that now the Argentinian clubs were at a disadvantage playing continental competitions
yeah, yeah.
because now their off season was in the middle of everyone else's season. So they went into the group stage like at the end of their season, which is some at their peak, some already kind of tired. And then when the knockout stages started, they were basically beginning their year. So
Yeah.
a lot of teams were out of shape or the chemistry wasn't there yet. So some teams suffered because of that, and now they reverted back. Now their season starts in January, ends in December, like the rest of South America. So that might have a little bit of an influence on how well they do in the
Hmm.
Libertadores and Sudamericana. If you look at the groups, Argentinian teams are basically in either first or second in every single group, um, and yeah,
Yeah.
we'll see. It's early. It's early in the season.
Yeah. It's been
Only
two
11
rounds,
games in, but
but yeah,
I
I
think
hear
that's a
you.
little something that's worth mentioning that happened. Also during
Oh, absolutely.
COVID, when soccer first started coming back, the Argentinian teams were playing like 25 games a year. They were struggling to get enough games in. So now they're starting to get back into rhythm. So now, which means also there should be more money coming in, more players are going to get more playing time, so things are going to start picking back up in Argentina. So if you're a Brazilian team, I would start worrying a little bit more about the Argentinian teams and expect them to be a little tougher to beat than they were the last couple of years.
Yeah, no, I feel like that's really important to say. My man, if you don't have anything else, I think we're kind of ready to be done. This was really quick. I'm just gonna throw a couple of questions your way just to get a couple of names from you.
Absolutely.
Favorite Argentinian player you've ever seen? You can't say Messi. People would be so disappointed if you said Messi. Like Johnny can
No,
say
no, no, no.
Messi.
That's not how I judge my favorite players. In São Paulo, the team that I go for, I really like Lucas Prato. I quickly mention him. He's playing for Vélez now. He like one of those players that just hustles.
Yeah.
Um, Man, Ezequiel Lavezzi playing for
Betsy
Napoli
was so
was
fun.
man. I really liked him. Just the charisma and the chemistry that he had with the fans, with the city, uh, with the fact that he didn't leave Napoli to go to Juve like others did. Cough, cough,
Yeah.
Higuain. um, so he was always very loyal to Napoli. Never played anywhere else in Italy, So I really liked him. Um, yeah, those are two that stand out to me. Um, and Jonathan
Awesome.
Caleri. Well, I mean, but
Yeah.
super biased, but I love Jonathan Caleri.
Awesome. Awesome. I feel like that's the kind of that answer I was expecting, right? Like right out of the mainstream. My
Yeah.
favorite Argentinian, like I'm sure you can guess it, but most people in Europe don't know him. The best
Cano,
player. No, I mean that cool, sure, makes the L. Herman Cano, he scores a lot of goals, yes. But dude,
Conca.
best, yes. Dario Conca, the best performance in the history of this format, this like format of the Brasileirão. He played all 38 games. I think he had the most assists in that season as well. Like he just carried us. Our team wasn't even that good, and we won.
The
Spectacular.
2010 or 2012?
2010. 2012, he played in the beginning, but he left. Like the main guy there was Fred. But
Right.
2010, it was Dario Conca. Made like it was him.
Yeah.
And I was always a huge fan of Riquelme's, man. Like
Right.
huge. I have no idea how he didn't play for the Giants in Europe. He might have played like one or two seasons at Inter. Yeah,
Yeah, I think yeah, I'm not sure. I think he was kind of a late bloomer.
yeah, that
Um,
too.
and also that was a time where Fluminense had strong sponsorship from Unimed, so
Mhm.
money wasn't too much of an issue, I believe. But Conca,
No, no, no.
recently
You got me wrong. You got me wrong. Now, I wasn't questioning Conca not playing for the main teams. I mean, Conca was never at that level. He could have played in Italy. He could have
at
had a
the peak,
solid career.
at the
No,
peak, I don't know.
yo, at the peak, I was asking for Conca, who is legally a Brazilian because he lived here for a long time, to be in the Brazilian national team.
Yeah, yeah.
But no, I'm talking about Riquelme. Riquelme played most of his European career at Villarreal.
Yeah, it's because he kind of had the same issue. This is a terrible comparison, but it's the first one that came to mind that Gabigol had because he went to Barcelona, didn't do as great as people thought he would,
Yeah,
and then or am I confusing him with Savio?
I can't like I can't help you.
Very embarrassing. Yeah, no. Yeah, I just think he's also one of those players. No, yeah, he did play for Barcelona. I don't know why I second guessed myself, but didn't do
You should
as
never.
well as people thought he did,
Yeah,
or that was supposed to, and then just kind of moved his way down Villarreal and then back to Argentina. But he
yeah,
did take Villarreal to the quarterfinals of the Champions League. Let's not forget that. And what he did for the national team is has always been incredible.
yeah,
And also, I think he's one of those players that are seen as like the old number 10 that's like kind of slow,
yeah,
passes, but doesn't go back to help on defense, which in Europe is kind of seen as like, something of the past. So kind of an old school style player.
yeah.
Um, but the Conca discussion is interesting because recently D'Alessandro, still talking about Argentinians, so I think we can have this discussion.
Absolutely, absolutely.
D'Alessandro just retired not too long ago, right?
Beautiful moment.
Yeah, and that kind of raised a discussion of who's the best foreign player in Brazil, and or the best Argentinian player in Brazil, and I think Conca is definitely in that discussion with D'Alessandro, who also played very well for River Plate. Um, so
I mean,
it's
if you're talking about the time that I was watching football, I feel like those are probably the main two. But
yeah. Again, I was having this discussion with Mateo, who commented here earlier. I think Deves, even though it was just one season, had an incredible season for Corinthians in 2005.
absolutely, yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
so I
But
think
I
that
could, or that season was so shady. Like overall, But it's
Yeah, I
tough.
think there's definitely things you can put up for discussion, but how well Tevez did individually, like
Yeah,
how well he played, how well he performed, I think that's
yeah.
I don't think there's a lot of discussion there on
I
how great that
think
was.
I think D'Alessandro edges Conca there. I don't think D'Alessandro was ever as good as Conca was in 2010. I truly don't. But I feel like he's a bigger idol at Inter than Conca is at Fluminense. I think he played there for longer. Conca did go to Flamengo at some point. He promised me he wouldn't. That really hurt my feelings.
Even though he
Um,
never entered the field. Now, and
yeah,
Alessandro also has more titles, right? Because I mean, Conca,
absolutely.
D'Alessandro never won the Brazilian league, but he came in second twice, if not three times, and won two Libertadores, Sul-Americana, Recopa, Club World Cup. No, not Club World Cup. That
No,
was
no, no.
after.
Yeah,
He came after, but
yeah,
um, Brazilian Cup.
yeah.
So
There's a couple there. I think like Kahneman was a great defender for Grêmio for what, like 6, 7 seasons as
yeah,
well.
yeah, but like
No, yeah, no, that'd be overdoing it by a lot. But
yeah.
there's been a lot of great Argentinian talent. But what about the big idols that we've seen this 21st century with Messi excluded? Who did you enjoy watching the most? Like Riquelme, Veron, Zanetti.
Ooh,
Um,
Zanetti's a great one.
yeah,
Um, Man, Di Maria, I think is it's a weird thing to say for a player who played for Real Madrid and PSG, but I think he's kind of underrated. Maybe not underrated, but not mentioned um,
hmm
as as well as he should be. I think he should be in more conversations when we're talking about top players.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, Argentinian players. I think this was a really good generation. A lot of really good individual talent.
No, yeah, I second that for sure.
Yeah, yeah,
But yeah,
it's hard to pick. Again, I'm kind of bad at choosing these things off the top of my head, but
no, it's all good. I put you on the spot. It's the first time I did that. It's just that like there's more to pick from in Argentina. It would be a little silly to ask you like favorite Brazilian player. So this was the first opportunity I had of doing that. Keep that in mind for the future, though. I'm probably gonna be bringing back the same subject.
right.
But
Oh man, actually, another really interesting thing to mention. Sorry, one last thing about the Argentinian
go
league. If you
ahead,
scroll
go
down
ahead.
to Group B real quick,
Yeah, absolutely.
Barraca Central in sixth place.
Yeah.
That's a very small team. I think there's only like their second or third time in the first division, but they're owned by the president of the Argentinian Federation called Chiquitapia.
hmm
So super powerful, super influential guy. Multiple teams have complained about referees favoring them. Obviously, that's like an easy thing to say when you lose to a team, or like that's like the
Yeah.
obvious excuse.
Yeah.
So I'm not here to make any accusations. But I think it's worth mentioning because it's not a coincidence that they don't even have their crest there. They're very,
Yeah.
very small, very, and I mean this like not in a like I don't mean to insult them, but they're insignificant historically speaking in
Yeah.
Argentina, and then there they are, So
Yeah.
that's a story worth mentioning. Chiquitapia's club,
Yeah, absolutely. The only other club that doesn't have a badge shown there is right below them. This
Central de Cordoba. Yeah, they're
yeah.
like also very small, but they're a traditional team from the countryside. Cordoba is a big soccer city in Argentina. So
Yeah, I
they're
got
just a team living one of the best moments of their history. But a lot of these teams, a lot of these teams got favorited by the fact that the Argentinian went from 20 to 30 teams. Like 10 teams got
absolutely.
promoted one year. Let's not forget that. So
Yeah.
but Barracas, no, they got promoted last year. They finished top two in the second division. I think they won the second division and they got promoted and there they are.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, guys, you feel like you had a lot of really interesting information here. Mainly in the beginning, I had no idea Johnny was going to throw that at us, but I feel like that's a good topic for us to bring at some point. Like, what defines a big club? If European countries were to make that same, as Johnny mentioned, in Brazil, it's nearly impossible to try to do that because of the size of the country. But I'm sure we can come up with a couple criteria for Italy, Germany, England, Spain. That'd be fun. That'd be fun. Maddie, set it up, my man.
Yeah. Even
Um,
tougher, I think, than to define who the big teams are is who are the mid-sized teams. I think that
yeah,
that becomes an
that's true.
even the gray area there is even bigger.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't really see that as something, right? Like you're either a big club or a small club.
Yeah, but I think that became I don't know. I think there is such thing as a mid-sized team,
Oh,
but
I fully agree with you.
yeah,
I'm just saying that a lot of people just say those two, like small club, big
they're just
club.
being
That's
lazy,
it.
Charlie. They're just being lazy.
I Yeah, let's go with that. Let's roll with that. Sure. Guys, I'm here showing Johnny's website once again. Go Lasso Kits. We're about to tell you the promo code. Let me go straight to the Argentinian page, Argentina Clubs. Johnny, talk to us. What do they need to? This is so freaking cool. Look at this. Just tell them what they need to do.
Yeah, so promo code FITA ARG. So that has two A's back to back. It's
Let me.
FITAARG,
I'm
all
gonna type that
caps,
in.
all
Gonna type that
together.
in.
Yeah, that'll give you 15% off at checkout. Every Argentinian club and Argentinian national team, either of those tabs works. We ship exactly there it is, right there.
Yeah.
We ship all over the United States and worldwide. So if you're listening from the UK, if you're listening from anywhere else in Europe, Canada, South America, Asia, Australia, we ship to your country. Um, I think our jerseys are very fairly priced. If the conversion rate isn't great for where you are, we have a clearance section. The FITA ARG discount code won't apply there, but the prices there are pretty great. And as far as Argentinian clubs, man, we have obviously the two obvious one, River Plate and Boca, but there's a lot more than that. We have Temperley, we have Racing. If you scroll up, actually on the top right, that one just
Yeah.
came in today. It's very small team, Deportivo Mataderos, just came in today. Long sleeve, beautiful jersey. So we got a bit of everything in all sizes. Use the promo code, and we'll ship it to you the next day. We got the bucket hats that just came out too, are super cool. Those are
Bro,
made
those are
from original
so dope.
jerseys. Yeah, that
So
made
dope.
from an actual Boca. I mean, from a River jersey. So yeah, man, we have a lot of cool stuff. Check it out, and appreciate you guys watching all the way to the end and listening to me and Charlie.
Yo, absolutely. Check it out, guys. It's so cool. You can go like page after page. I love looking at these older kits. A lot of recent stuff as well, right? Like they didn't stop. But yeah, it's really cool, guys. Do take a look. Johnny, once again, thank you so much, my man. I'd be nothing in this show without you. I'm very thankful to have you as a friend and as my co-host for the FITA show. And well, stay tuned to all the content we have coming up at Football United TV. I know things have been a little slow, but Maddie and I are gonna bring it back up. Don't worry. We're not gonna have a regular Gunners from All Corners show tomorrow. We're gonna have a mix, right? Because we have Arsenal and United coming up, so we're gonna have a couple of them assholes along with us Arsenal fans in the stream in the panel tomorrow. Should be a fun one. So yeah, stay tuned for that and everything else. Johnny and I are going to be back in a couple of weeks talking about another country or another competition in this big American continent. Guys, let me find the outro. Thank you so much for staying with us for an hour and big up. Ciao.